So let me ask you, when you look at some of the stuff today, like when you look at some of the new guys that are competing, what do you think about when you see these guys? These are some of the new guys that are competing versus your era.
I don't see it.
Really?
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jake with Fitness Insider. Today we got a good one, man. So, Ronnie Coleman just appeared on the Valuetainment channel and basically just kind of tore into the modern lineup of bodybuilders, saying that, you know, that they don't really hold a candle back to like the 90s and early 2000s. So, this is coming from the GOAT, man, the greatest of all time. And Dorian Yates previously said this probably about a month ago, which, you know, was a huge, huge quote that came out. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into this and actually look into if he actually is right with his opinion or if it's just not founded in any truth. So, stick with me. Let's get into this thing. Okay, guys, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and show a clip from that video again to actually get into what Ronnie did say about the current bodybuilders. Then afterwards, we're going to kind of analyze what he said, and I'm going to do a comparison between modern bodybuilders and the guys back from Ronnie's day. So let's get into that.
Really? Meaning they wouldn't be able to compete in your era at all?
No, they wouldn't make the top 5.
Did you hear what Yates said about Brandon Curry or no?
No, I didn't hear. What did he say?
You seriously didn't hear what Yates said about?
No, I don't really keep
So
up
Yates
with
was sitting right here just a month and a half ago, I want to say, something like that. And Yates said Curry wouldn't have placed in the top 6 in his era.
Brandon Curry, at this physique, he definitely wouldn't place in the top 6.
He wouldn't place in the top 6 in the 90s?
No.
Because you were late 90s.
Conditioning is not the same. Look at those guys. I mean, nobody looks like they've been on a diet, like a real diet.
How do you judge that? What are you looking at? What's your eyes looking at, honestly? What's your eyes looking at? Because to
nobody really looks in shape, you know?
Nobody really looks in shape.
They look okay, you know?
Wow. Okay.
You think so?
No, well, you got to realize I am not.
Dude, that was a slam, man. I swear when I first heard that, I was laughing about as hard as Ronnie was at the end there. And I left the laughing in because it just goes to show how much of a joke he thinks this is. He was stunned to see that the interviewer actually thought that these guys looked good. You know, he said they looked okay and just started laughing and was like, "You actually think so?" So, I mean, dude, look, I will go on record and say that the current lineup is not as bad as Ronnie is making them sound or Dorian is making them sound. But let's just take a look at it, right? If we're going to stick with, you know, just the top guys now versus the top guys then, you know, Brandon Curry, Sean Roden, Phil Heath, Rolly Winkler, William Bonac, Dexter Jackson, you know, those top 6, and Big Ramy, those guys around there versus, you know, Ronnie Coleman, just Chris Cormier, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, just Sean Ray, all those guys, man. Like, obviously, the 90s, early 2000s was basically like the golden era of bodybuilding, man, the epitome of bodybuilding. And I say that I actually enjoy current bodybuilding. I just think if you look back then, those guys came in with shape, size, symmetry, proportion, and conditioning, man. The conditioning was so important back then, like Ronnie was saying. I didn't want to show the whole interview, you know. Definitely go check out their stuff on that page. It was a phenomenal interview. But, man, I'm telling you, dude, I can't believe he actually publicly slammed everybody like that. And, man, Ronnie's a good dude. I don't think he meant any harm by that. I just think he was freely talking about it. And, yeah, man, something has to be said, man. Arnold has publicly slammed bodybuilders now for having, like, quote-unquote, bottle-shaped bodies and talked about the conditioning and people are too big and the proportions gone. Man, I agree. I think these guys need to put the size in the back burner and actually try to worry about shape and presentation and looking good, you know, having a body that people would want to look like. So anyways, yeah, so I just want to say that, and we're going to go ahead and get into some comparisons here. I've had a couple pictures rolling here just for some, you know, a quick comparison, something to keep an eye on between the two decades. But we're going to get into a little bit more decisive comparisons, so follow me along. Okay, in order to do this fair and, you know, in a timely fashion, because let's be real, man, you know how long it would take to go through the top 6 of today and the top 6 from several different years of the 90s and early 2000s to do actual good, comprehensive, you know, comparison. It's not in the cards, and let's be real, nobody wants to sit here and watch me do that anyway, so, you know what, I've picked 3 comparisons between, you know, top 6 guys today between top 6 guys from decades ago, and we're just going to go over one pose from each person and put them up against, you know, somebody that's pretty comparable in height and size and, you know, whatever. So first I picked Rolly Winkler and Sean Ray. So believe me, I'll be the first one to say that Sean Ray was an incredible bodybuilder, Hall of Famer for sure in my book. But when it comes to just overall mass, just crazy size in just stage presence, as you can see here in the most muscular, obviously the scaling's a little off, but nobody's beaten Rolly in the most muscular except maybe Phil or Kevin Levrone. And honestly, everyone, you know, hails Kevin as like the best, most muscular ever, but I think if you stood him next to Rolly, I think he'd get dominated. Or at least I think it'd be very close, but I think Rolly would still come out on top. He was much bigger, you know. But either way, my point of this is to show that while the guys in the 90s at their best will beat, you know, today's guys when they're off, if you had 100% Rolly Winkler versus 100% Sean Ray, I think Rolly would come out on top. Or if he didn't, then he'd probably beat a Chris Cormier or, you know, a Flex on their off day. You know, who says that 90s guys aren't able to come in off? Several of them did several times. So let's not pretend that those guys came in perfect every single time. So that's just the first one. Okay, and next we got Big Ramy from the 2017 Olympia and Nasser Al-Somebody. I'm not actually sure what year this is. It looks to be in his later years. I could be wrong. But, yeah, again, as I've said before, it is hard to find good competition picks from guys in the 90s. But anyways, this will definitely do. This was probably Ramy's best year, and probably one of the crappier years for Nasser, but I'm doing this to make a point, okay? Ramy, right here, in my eyes, while he's not as crisp around the mid, you know what? Ramy is dry as hell, but, you know, he's not as separated, neatly separated in the legs and in the abs, but he is way drier and way bigger. I mean, maybe not way bigger, but he's definitely a bigger guy. And Nasser was like the biggest mass monster of the 90s, man. He was just huge, dude. And while this is a very close comparison, I'd give it to Big Ramy all day, man. His legs are far bigger, way more sweep. Again, not as neatly separated, but just so much more mass, so much more sweep. They both have tight midsections. Ramy appears to be wider, bigger lats. Chests are pretty comparable, but I can guarantee you, man, Ramy's arms are far better and shapelier. So, yeah, man, Ramy all day on this one. And you know what? I'm sure there were better years that Nasser came in, but my point is that everybody's saying that, you know, the new bodybuilders couldn't hold a candle to the old ones, and this is my point, you know. Yeah, take Nasser at his best and compare him to an off Big Ramy. Of course, Nasser will probably win. But let's flip the coin and say, how about a perfect Big Ramy versus an off Nasser? Big Ramy would smash him. So, you know, there's another one. All right, and I saved the best for last. And I say best because, you know, Dorian was more focused on Brandon Curry when he gave his quote of saying that Brandon Curry wouldn't make top 6 back in the 90s. So I'm not going to compare him to Dorian, okay? Dorian was phenomenal. You know, we could do that in a later video, but to say he wouldn't even make top 6, that is such a wrong statement. And I'm going to use this photo as an example. So here we got Kevin Levrone. and Brandon Curry. And if you look at the two, I know that, again, the scaling's not perfect and whatnot. Lighting's different. But if you look at the two structure-wise, Kevin had phenomenal structure. He looked so good. But I'd say Brandon's upper body is actually a better structural shape for bodybuilding, man. Brandon has phenomenal arms. He has insane width. Look at the flare in the lats down to that midsection. And again, Kevin is right there with him. They both look phenomenal. And people criticize Brandon all day about his legs. And you know what? I'm not going to completely, go to bat for him on this. Yeah, he needs to bring his quad sweep up and everything and his hamstrings. But Kevin was not like a Hall of Famer in the leg department either. Okay, so if you're looking at these guys, it's a close matchup. You could really flip it either way. But that's just my point, man. I'd say that Brandon has a stronger back than Kevin all day. And, if you went through all the mandatories with these guys, I really do think it would be close. And that's just Kevin Levrone. Again, what if you go down the line to the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth spot, It's just not a correct statement for Dorian or Ronnie to make. You know what? They're okay to have their opinions, man. That's fine. This is bodybuilding. Everybody has their opinions. This is my opinion. But I'm just kind of going through and showing you why I actually think these guys would hold up very well in the older in the golden era. So that's what I think about that. All right, guys. So that basically does it for the point I was trying to make in this video. So I'm not going to try to keep going too deep into this thing and re-emphasize all the points I've made, but just to kind of sum up what I was trying to say here is that Ronnie and Dorian were two of the best to ever do it, and I'm sure their opinions are valid to some extent, right? I'm the first that will admit that the conditioning needs to become a priority again with the current lineup. I think they're so focused on mass that they're kind of forgetting, but I really do think that they're trying to trend back towards that now. And I also think it comes down to the judges too. If they start rewarding conditioning, that's what the competitors are going to chase. If you keep rewarding size, that's what the competitors are going to do. So with Sean Roden in 2018 and Brandon Curry in 2019, it seems like they're making a way back to, shape and symmetry and proportion and conditioning. So, I'm excited to see where this goes. But, yeah, I just wanted to defend the current bodybuilders and say that they would definitely hold their own back in the day, especially if they came in on. And I think if they seen the competition and the conditioning that they were facing, they would have tried to replicate that. So, and I do want to give Ronnie credit. He did actually stick up for Phil Heath. I didn't include that in the video, but he definitely said Phil Heath would be very competitive back in the day. So I just wanted to point that out, and it wasn't completely unfair. But anyways, guys, this was a fun one. This is Jake with Fitness Insider. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.